So good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending STEM is the New STEM. We're going to be talking about some very interesting topics that are very near and dear to me. But first, I'd like to thank Bsides Detroit. You guys are fantastic. I love coming here. I think this is like my third or fourth year speaking. I've lost track of so many. I guess that's a good thing. And even one of my kids have attended before, and he enjoyed it. So it's great that you're here. You can bring your family. It's very kid-friendly. So again, thank you for having me here. Quick introduction on who I am, if you don't know who I am. So my name is Dave Schwartzberg. I go by Heel with Hands. It's not pronounced Heel Wands, but that's okay if you do pronounce it that way. Or I just go by Heel for short. I work at Mobile Iron, so they've sponsored my trip here, so I do want to mention and thank them for doing stuff like that and supporting my ability to speak with the community and share some things that I've learned over the year. Also, I'm the founder and president of Hack for Kids, not-for-profit. So if you haven't heard of me, you hopefully have heard of Hack for Kids. I prefer it to be that way. If you're not familiar with Hack for Kids, it's an organization created to educate kids about cybersecurity, STEM, anti-cyberbullying, and just best practices to be safe online. Essentially, the long game to fill the job gap in the InfoSec field. Amongst other things that I do, I don't want to spend 20 minutes on this. I'm a First Lego League coach, that's just also sponsored by Hack for Kids. I'm an assistant scout master, an assistant cub master, so I got 2 kids in scouting, so that keeps me pretty busy. I'm a merit badge counselor. There's actually more badges than that, but for like digital technology, electronics, robotics programming, chess, public speaking, things like that. Active den leader, so I got a bear scout, going to become a Weeblo soon. Anyone else in scouting here? Used to be? You either were as a kid or as a scouter or as a leader. Very cool. So then you may have heard of Wood Badge. I've just finished my Wood Badge ticket, so I'm Wood Badge trained. I have not had my beating ceremony yet, which is an inside joke. It's beading with a D, but I just say beating because they just keep giving you more stuff to do. Talk about like employee abuse. I'm also a Twilight Camp director for the Boy Scouts, so that's just a day camp program for Cub Scouts to go to. We usually have 160 to 170 scouts attend. It's 3 days, and by the last day, it's like a family picnic, and we'll have over 500 people there. So I'm pretty used to like organizing moderately sized events. I'm also on the Northeast Illinois Council STEM Steering Committee and also the chair for the Cub Scout STEM Subcommittee. So they kind of like rope you in, right? That's a part of the whole beating. Once they know that you can do something, they find more things for you to do. And if you want to reach me, you can find me on Twitter at D. Schwartzberg, on Facebook and LinkedIn. I usually like to travel with my family. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it on this trip, but here we are showing off the DerbyCon badge we won a couple years ago. Do you remember that? The scavenger hunt. I think you also helped me with one challenge before, Matt, which was pretty cool. But we won the badge, and we took a family photo with a badge, and then sent it back to them. We auctioned the badge off on eBay and raised about, I think it was $2,700 for Hack for Kids, which was pretty cool. So thank you again, Puking Monkey.
One, 4, 9, 2. Okay. 81492.
Is it okay to share your password with people?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to share your password with people. So that was Benny the Destroyer when he was just about 3. He's 5 now, and what he used to do is to unlock his tablet, he would publicly announce, he didn't speak very much, but he said his passcode to get into the tablet. His motivation, the incentive behind it is to watch YouTube videos. Does this remind you of like your users or your customers at all? Yeah, a little bit. What's the problem there? Well, public disclosure of passwords. We know you don't want to do that, but you also want to use a strong password. You can only be so strong of a password with a 3-year-old. He's 5 now. About a year. It took about a year to get him to finally change his password, but now he only shares it with me. He tells his mom he can't share it with her because it's a secret, which is good. He's learned, and I like the fact that she's got like shut out. So one of the main messages really there are Usability because of mobility. Mobility is driving a whole new generation of users that have little to no understanding of technology and best practices. And what they do is they do what's most convenient for them. There should be no surprise. This is something that I think we all probably get exposed to. But what's really important is not just for the very young generation or the very senior generation, but all the other generations in between really need to step up the game on practicing using stronger passwords, not sharing them. I know when my wife, when she was in her early 20s and she worked at a financial services company, who I'm not going to name because this is being recorded, she would share her password with her coworker. She was responsible for doing trades and closing trades and making changes. Yeah, you don't want to do that. But back then, why not? He's helping me do my job. Not a very practical thing to do for a lot of reasons. So that's part of the reason why we've created Hack for Kids, is to help educate them about how technology works at a lower level while teaching them through fun and gaming, and then to help them be better like online individuals so they don't become victims of all the different types of attacks that are going on. But before we get into what STEM with an H or STEM is, let's talk about STEM a little bit. So we've probably all heard of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. But a lot of people don't know that it was created back in 1997 by the National Science Foundation. I'll just say the NSF from now on. And they did it because they wanted to be more competitive globally and fund education initiatives so that way the educators would be trained, they'd have dollars for programs, and then they'd be able to educate high school kids, college kids a bit more, and then it kind of like trickled down even to elementary school. I'm seeing third graders have these robots called Dot and Dash. So they're starting to learn robotics programming even in third grade, which is pretty cool. And you could even go lower than that. Benny the Destroyer, he started playing a game called Robot Turtles at 3. If you haven't heard of Robot Turtles, it's a board game. It was a Kickstarter project, and it teaches kids fundamental programming methodologies. So understanding what an instruction pointer is, how to move an object across a board to an endpoint, and then even learning how to do things like functions for 3-year-old. Pretty damn cool. And he loves it. So if you want more information about that, let me know and I'm happy to share that. But Robot Turtles is the game. So NSF was very successful in 1997. I mean, who hasn't heard of STEM? Right. So in 2010, somebody said, it's not STEM, it's STEAM that you want. And I even hear ads now like their curriculum's powered by STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And that's very good, and arts are important. Then someone said, it was a Huffington Post article, was it 2014, where someone said, nope, we don't want STEM, we don't want STEAM, we want STREAM. And so you could keep adding to the acronym as much as you like, which is R for reading. And it's an interesting point, an interesting article. I think what's important is really what motivates the kids or the older students. What's important to them? What jobs do we need to have filled? I think it was, I got into something on that, I'm getting ahead of myself, but there's a huge vacancy of positions in our field. And then there's even, in my spare time for fun, I like to go surf the NSF website for grant solicitations. So now they have STEM-C for computing. It's more about deep research on different kinds of computing technologies to improve things like autonomous vehicles or like nanobots and stuff like that. But yeah, go through there. You'll see a lot of interesting solicitations. So not only is the NSF a big supporter of this, so is our former president. So Barack Obama, I'll just kind of read this one part because it's the bolded section, where he's talking about like science in schools. It is an approach to the world, a critical way to understand and explore and engage with the world, and then have the capacity to change that world. What does that sound like? Anyone? Hackers? Hacking? Like, what's hacking, right? Making small changes to something to see how it changes the behavior. Looking to turn things upside down, open them up, look inside, and not let warranty labels be kind of where you stop your curiosity. Who's ever voided warranties before? Isn't it one arm's way up there. Isn't it an exciting feeling? I love it. Little pro tip, if you want to avoid a lot of warranties but not feel like you're breaking your new fun toy, go to Goodwill. You can get stuff super cheap. I'm talking like a home router for like $3 or $4, or DVD players, or older DVD players, or even some stuff that you could use like flat panel monitors. Super cheap, but if you want to take it apart, that's what we do at Hack for Kids. Take it apart. No, it's like low cost. Like, why spend $50 on something and then wreck it when you can pay like a tenth of that? So, one of the other things that Obama did that was very good, very actually better than very good, but absolutely amazing, is he allocated $250 million towards the STEM program back in 2010. So, talk the talk and walk the walk, right? And he did. And it was really to, prepare 10,000 new math and science teachers. And then they trained another 100,000 existing teachers, specifically in the area of STEM. When you're like, wait, 1997 and 2010, that's like 13, 14 years before they actually started to allocate a lot of funds. This was just an additional initiative. There was already a lot of funds being allocated prior. So in the U.S., this is kind of what I was getting to before, CSO, they're predicting, or I wouldn't say predicting, but they've estimated that there's going to be, or we already have zero unemployment in our industry, which I think is pretty accurate. But with 1 million jobs unfilled, that's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of work. And you got to admit, most people in our industry, we make a pretty good living. So that helps stimulate the economy, and everybody is a bit happier, right? We're able to afford the basic stuff and a little bit more. But back at Bsides Las Vegas last year, there was a roving reporter from Speak with a Geek. You guys ever hear them before? Actually pretty cool stuff. There's a bit.ly to this one video, and they went around asking people at BSLV, how do you think we can solve this gap in employment or these open positions in the InfoSec field? And there's a lot of interesting responses. Some people kind of came up with stuff that sounded a little bit ridiculous, and some people had some good responses, and some people were just like, I don't know. And how do I know this? I was one of them. So there you can see my quote. But it's the idea is really just from my perspective, we can keep teaching people, end user training and security awareness. We can send them to class. You could do it every week. You could do it once a year. Is it really going to make a difference? You watch the movie Inception. It's really kind of hard to change somebody's belief system, especially when they hold it very near and dear. But if you can teach kids who don't have that many belief systems, and you start to teach them these best practices earlier on, regardless of what field they go into, IT, InfoSec, or maybe they become a manager at an energy company or a manufacturer, they're going to understand security best practices. And they're going to be thinking about that from the beginning, not later. They're going to budget for it during the project design, not as an add-on, which we're still doing that today. We haven't really gotten that much better, have we? Or am I just missing something? Appreciate it, sir. I'll take any form of laughter charity you're willing to give me. I know it's early on a Saturday. It's, but work with me, folks. This is a lot more fun for you if you just pretend to laugh at the jokes. So I can't take complete credit for this idea of adding an H into the word STEM, or the acronym STEM. Chris Sistrunk, you guys heard of Chris Sistrunk? Especially if you're in the energy business, you really want to know who Chris is. He's got a huge amount of experience with ICS and security. Like, you know who Chris is, right? Right. So we were just kind of sitting in a hangout. We originally created this talk, or pieces of this talk, for DerbyCon last year, and we delivered it together. But we're just kind of like going back and forth, kind of riffing on the idea, and it just it seemed to make a lot of sense that hacking is a part of STEM. Now, you can argue that, and I got some other slides on that in a bit, but if you think about it, it's an application of science, technology, engineering, and math. And I can go a little deeper. But if there's anyone who would disagree, please let me know. I'm willing to talk to you about it because I do want the other perspective. I love that you agree and you see the same vision that I see, but if you do have another perspective and it's like valid other than because I said so, just saying, and then he sentence with just saying and makes you right, well, not with me, and I tell that to my kids all the time. But I want to hear it from you. So, we're going to present, or Chris and I now present to you, hacking is in STEM. I think you already figured that out, but we're throwing in the hacker glider as the symbol. So instead of like atoms and a mobile device and gears and some, computation like functions, it's the glider. So you see that in the slides now. Now, a part of STEM, it's there, it's in our education system, but who are the main hackers that we think about, right? Where did they come from? Who started with IT as a hobby? I know for sure that was me. See, Wolfgang didn't raise his hand, so I guess you just were born this way. Oh, 2 hands. So we started as a hobby, and we're playing Zork, and we've got the old Apple IIe. Excuse me, I was a TRS-80 Model 3 guy myself. Still have it. Wife keeps asking me to get rid of it every year. I said, no, that's our retirement plan right there. We're going to sell it to a museum. And then you kind of get a little more interested in things, and you go to a BBS and you start downloading ASCII files because you want to make a pipe bomb. You want to learn assembly language. You can't find any good books in the library. So these BBSs become your main education center. That's where you go to learn this stuff. And you don't realize it, but you're forming yourself into a hacker. You're kind of starting, you have the natural curiosity, right? You're looking for innovation. You want to learn. You have that hunger for knowledge, and you're going to go to any lengths to satisfy it. So when you can't find it at your school, what are you going to do? Go online. And then some folks get real lucky, and they build a really nice business, right? You guys know who this is? Uncle Kevin? And you build a really nice business, and you can hopefully change the world. You're solving some problems in technology, but hopefully you're also saving the world. But then there's some other folks, which we're still trying to figure out what they're doing. Look up, Matt. No, these guys are great. There's the organizers of Converge and Bsides, Detroit. I have a little fun with you. But, these guys are also here making a difference in the community, bringing people together and wanting other experts to share knowledge, right? This is how you go from being, the Joe to the pro. And it's very common. Who doesn't have a home lab? And even if it's a big box with a bunch of VMs, there are some talks that have been recorded in the past, specifically like Chris Magdalena on how to build your own home lab. Absolutely critical in this field. If you're reliant solely on what your employer makes available to you, you're never going to get further in the career that you should. And then just do different things. Just experiment. Learn how to solder if you don't. Not that you want to do it professionally, but it's really good to inhale like vaporous lead. Good for you. And then there's the media aspect of the whole thing, right? So who remembers the original usage of the word hacker? You don't have to answer the question. You just raise your hand. It was about, I guess, late 60s. I've heard different stories like UPenn and MIT, but Wikipedia says MIT, so we're going to just assume it's right. They had this model train club. And what they would do is they would try to get these trains, and then they'd want to either go from 0 to whatever faster, or they'd want to pull a heavier load. So in order to take that train that you'd bought at the store, the hobby shop, you'd have to cut it in half and add engines. And that's where the hacking came from. So it was originally around literally transforming these toys into being powerhouse little machines. And that's really the term hacking, which also means just kind of what we said before is pushing innovation, not accepting things as they are, and just making these small changes to see how much better the results can be. But what did the media do? Totally took something that was beautiful and turned it into something that means cybercriminal. Chris found this one old article. If you can't see it up there, I'll read it to you. It's kind of funny. Hackers can turn your home computer into a bomb. And then the fine print, and blow your family to smithereens. So who's ever done that? I don't believe you, sir. No, you haven't. You can't do that. It's not possible without physical access. It's just absolute hype over things with a huge amount of ignorance. And when you start to share this kind of information with people who are not properly trained or understand technology, it now flusters this ignorance and fear, which we need to overcome. So I even love the fact that one person on the Hack for Kids board still debates whether or not we can take that word hacker back to mean something what it was originally intended to mean versus cybercriminal. He's like, nope, that ship has sailed, and that's a direct quote. You're never going to get it back. Which, if you haven't noticed, it's being used more. It's kind of like, it was like chic to be geek, and now it's cool to hack, right? Have you seen this more and more? Even my own library in the North Shore of Illinois, where I live, a couple summers ago, and they still do it every year, they have hacking workshops, and they use the word hacking in that. And that's public services. So now when public dollars are being used to mean cyber criminal, which we know it's not, like that would never be permitted. But so it's turning around. We are getting the word back to mean exactly what it should. You agree? Like we should take it back. So whenever you see or hear somebody misuse it, politely correct them. I make it a point because they need to stop spreading the FUD. Or they'll turn your computer into a bomb and blow your family to smithereens. I love this one. There was a cyber attack on a dam, and it began in the headline, "Damn hackers. Those damn hackers are at it again, ruining my day." And then there's some cases, right? There's some cases where they're getting it right. So, you saw the movie The Net. Could be a lot better. You saw the movie Sneakers. You're probably like feeling it like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And then, there's other shows that go on, like CSI Cyber, that just makes you kind of want to puke on yourself. What's that? Swordfish. There's certain parts of Swordfish I didn't mind. Which, to be honest, thank you. But, so that one gets a pass, dude. That one gets a pass. One little fact that you guys didn't know, somebody in Flint, Michigan is a technical security consultant for Mr. Robot. A good friend of mine that I work with, he actually, I'll give you a brief story of how this happened. And the point of that story is you never know what someone's going to do in their life. Don't burn any bridges and always really try to be the best person you can be because you never know what can happen and you get things back in spades. The intern that works at Mr. Robot now worked with my friend James at Toyota, and so the intern came in, and every time the intern did something, James was a bit hard on him because he's like, I want this guy to learn. Like, this is just how his method is. So he was very, very hard on him, but the kid learned. And then eventually the kid moved on and said, I'm going to Hollywood. I want to get into production. Some time goes by. They cross paths in an airport and was like, oh, give me your contact information. We're working on a project, a cybersecurity type of TV show. We need consultants. All right. So James gives it to him just like, whatever. We'll see if anything happens. Something happened. And the first year, I think they paid him with just a hoodie that said Mr. Robot and the mask, which was kind of cool still. But now he's actually able to, not enough to quit his day job, but it's him and a few other people in our industry are making sure that this show is portraying the industry properly. There are certain things that, Hollywood has to do because it's not exciting to watch somebody hack a database for 10 hours. They need to kind of shorten that up. But the point is, we're actually being recognized properly. It's not just some kind of computer magic and you flip a switch and you're in the Pentagon's like servers and network. It doesn't happen that way. So that's that. And then there's the education aspect. To me, this is one of the most important parts is just the kids, right? They are just naturally born hackers. You know, look at Benny the Destroyer. He's got names for that for other reasons, not because he just says his password out loud. He's done interesting things with Q-tips. He's also, one time, mommy's phone was a little dirty, so he thought he'd wash it in the sink. That was a $280 lesson for mommy. And just some other wonderful things that he's kind of taken apart and, you know, caused financial hardship on his parents. So why are kids natural hackers? Well, who's a parent? And it's not right or wrong if you're, okay, so what is one of the things that whenever you ask your kid to do, what's the first thing they'll do? They'll question your authority. I need you to brush your teeth. I need you to do your homework. I need you to stop hitting your sibling, right? They're like, why? Like, they want to hit their sibling. Makes them feel better. So I understand that. So they just want to not accept things the way they're given to them. They want to understand it a little better. And then, you know, you tell your kid, or your kid says to you this better, I want to go see Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Can we go see it? I'm like, well, I don't know. We're going to be busy. Maybe, you know, let's just see how things go. 2 minutes later, I want to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And even if you say yes, then it becomes, when are we going to go? When are we going to go? When are we going to go? They're like a persistent interrupt on a CPU. It just doesn't end. Am I wrong? Who's lucky enough to have a kid that doesn't do that? And I got 3 kids, and it's just constant, like, you got to manage this, right? You got to manage persistence. But they won't quit, so that makes them a really good hacker. They also like to just create things. Benny also, in addition to being a destroyer, he's a really brilliant creator for someone of his age. Things with magnetiles. You guys have magnetiles? They're actually pretty fun. And he treasures his creations. But then his friends come over and then they upgrade it. They innovate it. They make it a little better. And that's something that's very important, right? You want them to not just say, I'm done. What technology have we ever come across that is ever done? And when done doesn't mean like nobody wants to use it anymore. Like it's completed and it's perfect. Pizza's not a technology, sir, but I like how you think. There is no such thing. So innovation is absolutely crucial to kids in the hacker mindset. And some of them are pretty good social engineers. Earlier, I was giving Matt an example of how my oldest son, who's 11, he's been to several Hack for Kids. He loves doing CTFs. He did, I think, like even the Bsides kids, when you guys did that a few years ago. He loves doing these things, but he's never really won, because we have prizes for the kids if they win. Well, Milwaukee was the first time he won, because he finally figured out how to game me. Being my kid, I can't like give him hints, because that's just not fair, at least in my opinion, not his. So what does he do? Like, if he wants information, rather than asking me, because he goes, well, Dad, is this like hexadecimal, or is it just like an MD5 hash that like I'm trying to decode and I can't figure it out? I'm like, I don't know. What is it? What do you think? So I'm like a wall. I give him nothing. Well, he learned to make friends with other kids, and he sends them to me to ask his questions. He's social engineering me. It's in a small way, but it was very clever. He figured out how to get around the system. Because they come up to me, and I don't give them the answer, but I want them to do well. So I'm like, yeah, you're kind of getting on the right track there, but what if you look at it this way? Oh, yeah, and the light goes off, and I'm happy because I'm helping him, and he's getting flags. They're brilliant social engineers. Or the other one is like my middle kid. Hey, I want to go and ride my bike with my friend. He's 9, so we don't want him to go ride his bike with just his friend in the park. But I'm like, did you ask your mom? So he goes and asks Mom, what do you think she says? Did you ask your dad? So then we're kind of in a deadlock. Well, he's learned. He goes, yeah, I asked Mom. Never did. What did she say? She said, it's up to you. Totally figured out how to get around the system. That's not new. Kids have been doing this for centuries, but it's amazing how there's no book on how to be a kid and game your parents. But they figure it out. because they're natural social engineers. Here's a great case study. I don't think he's 5 anymore, but this was a couple years ago where this kid here, I can't remember his name, I apologize, but you could go find the video. It's really adorable. This is like a screenshot from him. He was about 5, he was 5 years old, and his dad worked in IT, and he had an Xbox. Or they have an Xbox. And his dad had a passcode on it. So the kid doesn't know it. He's 5, and it's like usually with the keys, and you gotta kind of move around through it, and you gotta have spell and controllers and everything. It's complex. But he just sits there and mashes the keys, because he thinks that's kind of like what his dad did. And he's there mashing the keys and mashing the keys. He's essentially fuzzing the Xbox login prompt. And he got a buffer overflow. So when they patched it, he has, at the age of 5, CVE creds. So the kid found it, and they gave him credit for discovering it. And when they interviewed him on the news, I still get chills when I tell that. When they interviewed him on the news, he goes, yeah, I just want to play Xbox, so I kept hitting the keys, and I got in, and I was like, yay! It's so adorable. You have to see this video. And then his dad's like, yeah, we keep a passcode on there, blah, blah, like, typical parent stuff. Great. It's great. And then there's Benny. I keep going back to Benny because he's younger, and my older kids do the same things, but I don't really think that there's like an age barrier. I mean, aside from like, sub 1 year. Once they're kind of able to interact with you and have object persistence and they're aware of their surroundings, and you can teach them a little bit, a perfect game again is Robot Turtles. And there's other things, Little Bits and what. I don't want to seem like I'm endorsing a bunch of other products, but these kids can learn at a young age. And if they're going to be receptive and they're going to absorb it, why shouldn't we teach them properly? There's, I guess if you never heard of him, he's not famous, but Russell Ackoff, famous economist. Anyone? Yeah, the blank look is usually what I get in this crowd. So Russell Ackoff, he said this saying, I'm probably going to mess it up, but paraphrasing for the most part, when we do something wrong, the wronger we become. When we do something right that's wrong, the righter we become. He says it much more succinct than that, but the concept is really, even if you're doing the right things poorly, you can get better and eventually do them the best way that they should be done, versus starting wrong, because then you just keep getting really good at fail. So think about what you do, right? Well, most of these really successful hackers, they probably fail 100 times before they find that one thing that gets them in the news. So don't let failure ever be a hurdle you can't get over, no matter what. You can tweet that out, Wolf. So I know he likes to tweet people when they're speaking, but thank you. I love it. No, do it. Oh, you're not going to do it now that I said it. So some other STEM case studies. So we know like young kids or third graders and higher have a great time with this. So this is an example of or case study from Chris Sistrunk's son. So who's ever heard of MIT Scratch? It's fun. It's a really great way to teach kids programming with the concept of like different colored bricks that snap together. So if it's like a loop, things go in the loop and it just keeps getting longer. Or you can't have certain like conditionals go together with other things, like so it just doesn't programmatically work, so they won't snap together, and then there's values that you can change. It's a lot of fun, even for adults. So Chris, his son, he made this Pong game. And so the first thing that he wanted to do to kind of like change it up a little bit is whenever there's like the ball is hit by a paddle, it does like a flashing kind of random color. So right there, you're like almost like that kind of psychedelic response, like blinking lights sometimes cause seizures thing. So it's like boom, 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 and it kind of starts messing with your head. But then he said, well, I want it so that whenever like the ball is hit by player one, like the ball becomes bigger. So it's easier to hit. But then like the other paddle, if it hits it, it becomes like smaller. So it's like harder for them to hit. So if he's like player two, it gives him like an edge. So he's like changing the game up so that it makes it a little bit easier for him to win. And then I think it changed it where the ball became like really big. It was just like this big giant dot. So there's like no more Pong. And it's just like making this crazy noise. And that's kids, right? Being innovative, trying different things. And that's acceptable. But in the true spirit, so I don't think his son's 9 anymore, he might be like 10 or 11, but in the true spirit of a kid, what do you think they named the game? But are we any better? We're not. We're big kids. So that's just some fun case studies for Chris's kid and my kids and someone else's kid. But there's also a lot of education going on. I can go through all these different logos and just kind of like say the great things that are happening. But I've already talked about Hack for Kids. You guys know about Roots Asylum at DEF CON, formerly DEF CON Kids. That was part of the inspiration for creating a Hack for Kids, is try to reach out to other locations so it's not just in one place. And we've gone as far as Belgium. And they're actually pretty much running it themselves. I don't need to be there anymore, which is fantastic. There's cyber boot camps for kids. There's first Lego League STEM stuff so that they're learning design, concepts, engineering, project management, software development, like or programming a robot, and all the other mechanical engineering that comes with that. There's Hacks Day, Kids Hack Day. There's Gen Cyber. You heard of Gen Cyber? Who else has heard of Gen Cyber? So I did a little search. So Gen Cyber is funded by the National Science Foundation. Again, these STEM folks. And this is a program very, very specific to cybersecurity education for pre-college kids. So I first heard about it at Bsides Indy, where some Purdue students came up to me and was like, "Oh, we run Gen Cyber. We want to do some stuff with you guys." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds cool. What's Gen Cyber?" So I want to now take an initiative to have one in Illinois, and wherever I go and speak, I'm raising awareness for other people in other states. So I went to the Gen Cyber website, and there was, I just kind of, where do you go for a camp? There's actually one, is it Rochester? Yeah. So I think it's 5 days. So go to the website, and if you know any kids, and I think it's grades 8 through like junior and high school. So you have to be like going into 8th grade or going into your senior year. So if you're a graduating senior, you don't qualify. And I don't know exactly what they'll do. I think they're all a little different, but it's there to teach kids cybersecurity. And from what I was told, it's supposed to be no charge. So compared to some of those other programs that are out there where they're charging you an arm and a leg to put your kid in a chair for a week, and they come home, like this happened to me, and my kid was like, I'm like, "Well, how was it?" He goes, "Yeah, it was all right." I'm like, "What do you mean? I just spent $800. What do you mean it was all right?" He goes, "I kind of learned a lot of that stuff at Bsides Detroit." It's like, oh, so you guys undercharged. It was kind of crushing for me, but also enlightening that there's a lot of low cost or free programming out there for kids that are underserved, and Gen Cyber is one of those ways to serve them. So if you're not volunteering for Gen Cyber, then I suggest that you do. Or if you wanted to run one in another area that's far enough away, where is actually Rochester? Is it in the Detroit suburbs, or? So right, we have like there's a lot of space on the mitten, right? We got a lot of places to go up here, so maybe someone in Grand Rapids might want to run one. So the different workshops, I didn't catch all those dates. I wanted to repeat them, but it was like from beginning June 6th all the way through July 10th. Okay, so check out the website. So so all the parents that raise their hand, if your kid's like going into 8th grade or senior in high school, it's worth it, at least in my opinion. It's free. And it's the first one in Michigan, which I also noticed too. When the NSF spoke with me, they didn't have any in Illinois, and I wanted to be that pioneer, but when I checked the same website, there's like 4 or 5 going on now. So I'm like, oh. Oakland University here in Rochester. Awesome. Thank you for looking that up. I won't repeat that, but you're very welcome. I don't want to dox you. You're being recorded. So then there's another program, but thank you for looking that up. There's Cyber Patriot. Who's heard of Cyber Patriot? Another great program funded by the Air Force. I try to create one in my kids' middle school. I know some coaches from Cyber Patriot, and they essentially told me I was doing it wrong. I was going to the school. I got all this ice-breaking material from the Air Force on how to communicate properly with the school, but I got no response. And one of the coaches said, "Don't go to the school. They don't understand this." because it was a middle school. Go to the parents. The parents who understand this and their kids want to do this, they're going to then rally and pester the school to do it. Because that way they feel the pressure that there's interest versus you saying, hey, I want to do some free programming and I got this great idea, and then, they're not behind it. But when you have parents that are pushing it, they have to respond to the parents. And then there's interrupt. So now I'm going to give you a couple Hack for Kids. How are we doing on time? I got some time. This is good. Some Hack for Kids, some personal stories for you that very interesting. Sorry, I got distracted. So the first story is Bob. I met Bob in 2015 at Circle City Con in Indianapolis. It's the first time we did a village there, and Bob was about 14. He's never done this stuff before. So the way we worked that village was you could drop your kids off. They weren't allowed to leave until you picked them up. So the parents can go off and do whatever, CTF, watch talks, workshops, whatever. So Bob comes in. I'm like, you ever done any of this stuff before? He's like, no. I like computers, but I don't know what this is. So we had one sign up on the wall that said Crypto Corner. And your very own D-Tom was the admin for that activity. He's now running the CTF here today. And his Crypto Corner activity just essentially taught kids the difference between encoding, hashing, and encryption, right? Base64 is not encryption. That should be like a tattoo. Because it's not, and some people still think it is. And I've seen professionals say, oh, it's encrypted with Base64. Drives me nuts. So we're teaching these kids the difference. So we're teaching them how to decode things that are encoded. We're teaching them how to look up a hash either using Google or a rainbow table, like, CrackStation or whatever. So this was all manual. So Bob sat there all morning. We had 8 different activities, and he's doing them. And then we go to lunch, and we come back, and he's waiting outside the door because we had it locked. Like, how long have you been waiting? Oh, I don't know, like 20 minutes. Like, oh, sorry to make you wait. Let's go back inside. He sat there at that Crypto Corner, which we now call Spy Math, the rest of the day. He's like, I am doing this. So he manually decoded Base64. That's pretty cool. I mean, there are no adults that want to spend any amount of time. You look at it, you go, I think it's Base64. Let me test it. Hooray for me, success. But it's not, oh, well, too bad. I'm going to go do something else. But the kid sat there, and I still get chills when I think about this. So what happened, the real message is not that a kid spent his whole day trying to do stuff like manual labor, which cryptanalysts were doing 30 years ago at the DoD. He discovered something in himself. He had no idea he had a passion for this kind of math. He loved it, and he told us repeatedly how much he loved it. He cared about nothing else in that room except doing that. And again, I get chills. And I'm thrilled that we're able to help somebody uncover that about themselves. So then I got to know his dad a little bit in the email because he asked me some questions before the event. And I emailed his dad afterwards and said, oh, what did Bob tell you? By the way, that's not his real name. What did Bob tell you about the event? He goes, oh, yeah, he said he had some fun, and that was about it. And I go, oh, no. I wrote this long email about how he impressed us, kind of the same story I just told you. And his dad's response, I mean, I've never seen someone's drop to the floor in an email, but essentially kind of the words he used. He had no idea his son had that kind of experience and had an interest in this. And because of what we've done, he's now able to explore that with his child. So again, parents, when you ask your kid, oh, what'd you do today in school? Nothing. Did you learn anything? No. And it was maybe Bob wasn't that blunt or rough about it, but now there's a parent who can then respond to their child based on their need or their interest, which I think is fantastic. So this is you guys now. So the next story is Alice. And again, that's not her real name. And I don't know if I see Alice's mom here. So I'm going to talk about Alice a little bit. And even if she was, I'd talk about her. So we did a Hack for Kids at Bsides Detroit last year. Sorry we couldn't do one this year. I actually flew in from California last night. My company had a customer meeting, or a customer conference, and there was no way that I'd be able to bring any of this stuff. But hopefully we could do one again next year, because this story, if you're not crying when I'm done, you're a mean person. So Alice, she had a rough start in life. At least this is how the story was told to me. She was born to parents that had chemical addictions. Like one was drugs, one was alcohol. I don't know which was which, but so she had a rough start. And the thing that like a lot of kids tend to have is like what their daily needs, like clothes that fit, or going to school regularly, or eating 3 times a day because your parents remember to feed you versus being like, strung out on a couch. So she didn't have these kinds of things. And eventually she went into like a foster care system where the Bsides Detroit parent adopted Alice. And she said it took her a couple years, and at that time Alice was 12. She's probably 13 now. To just kind of adjust being around so many people, or not driving past the points where her parents would pick up their next hit. So she was able to kind of start to function the way you would expect a 12-year-old to function, and was showing interest in technology. Both her parents work in IT/security. So just being exposed to that, she's showing some interest, but not a lot of prowess. It's still kind of new to her. So she's like, I'm going to bring you to Bsides Detroit Hack for Kids. And Alice went there, and she competed in our sumo bot competition, which Brain Monkeys was here to help out with. Yay, Brain Monkeys. So they had, if you're not familiar with the sumo bot, it's basically a disc on the floor. It's black with a white ring around it. So the robot would detect the white. It has a color sensor and knows to not go off the arena. And it's just 2 bots banging into one another. And when you knock points off, or knock pieces off, you get points. You push it out of the ring, you win. So Alice never did this before, and she was the second person up. Well, she beat the other kid's bot. Not only did she beat the other kid's bot, she kept beating every other bot after her. So whatever was in her design, it was superior to anyone else that may have done this before. So there was something in her that was just natural to build the best bot. It wasn't this one I just grabbed off the internet, but I think she had a wall or something in front of it, so they couldn't really destroy her, and it was enough of a wall to push them off. So it was pretty good basic engineering, right? KISS. So she got first place. Now, that was great, because if you remember in the award ceremony, we gave her a $25 gift card. For a kid themselves, $25 is great. I'm going to go spend it on some app or some candy or something. But for her, understanding her background and her start in life, this was tremendous. Like winning like money like that, I don't think she ever did before. She was almost crying when she first received it. But then the story goes on. She participated in our junior CTF. So one of the policies that we have with the parents is don't do this for your kids. Don't hover. Don't be a helicopter parent. But if they get stuck, ask them a simple question. Do you want coaching or time? If they want coaching, kind of nudge them in the right direction. But if they want time, it's the hardest thing for a parent to do is you just got to step back and let them take some more time. So they worked through the crypto puzzles, and I believe she got most of them. There were some OSINT kind of questions or social engineering questions that were in there, and she did very well with those. I think she got all the way up to 5-pin lock. So she picked most of the... It's amazing. These kids can pop a 6-pin lock. I can't do it. But they're able to do it. I guess it's the touch or something. But she was able to get almost all the flags for the lock picking. We also had these cool electronic badges last year. Those had puzzles on them. So she was one of the only people, I think if not the only person, to figure out what the encoded message was and enter that flag properly. So again, putting Alice's life in perspective, winning a sumo bot contest, and then tying for first place in a CTF was another life-changing moment for her, right? I think it was Ryan's son that he had to because he tied with her, but he couldn't pick first. It was no, ladies first, so she get to choose. And I think she got a Kona kit, so now she has a Raspberry Pi. It's this is great stuff, man. This is great stuff that's going on, which is another reason why we need to have hacking in STEM. Because all the beautiful stuff that comes from it. You guys got to engage students, or even students can be mentors. If you know somebody who's 16 or 17 or even 11 and they're really good with tech, they can teach other kids. It builds confidence. It reinforces what they know. How many times have you ever taught a user how to do something the right way, and then you realized after doing it, you're like, oh shit, I knew a lot more about that than I thought I did. Or you feel like, I got to do a little homework, and you get sharper at it. They're going to do the same thing. Also, leadership's important, right? I don't mean thought leadership, but I mean actually the ability to communicate with humans in a way that they want to be communicated, to motivate them to do things that they may or may not want to do. You know, you go to work, your allegiance is pretty clear. It's to the next paycheck, right? Hopefully it's better than that, but most people go to work to get paid. Kids are doing the same things that, they want to do what we're doing at work, but for free. So there's a leadership component. Tons of things for them to do. Tons. You know, the Pi Zero, right? I think Micro Center for a while, it was $1. Like, how do you go wrong there? Coffee costs 150% more than that. So you can get a Raspberry Pi, crypto challenges, stuff online. There's all kinds of stuff. Middle schoolers, you guys ever hear of Neverland CTF? Neverland CTF, it's great. It's built for middle schoolers. It's an online CTF, but adults do it too. So they have to weed it out, like figuring out who's the adults and stuff before they give out prizes. Books, No Starch Press. They've been a long time sponsor and supporter of Hack for Kids. They got a whole library on all different kinds of books for all different levels, especially for kids. And there's parents that read this stuff. So Python for Kids, it's another great book. Is there Posh for Kids? Oh, not yet. PoshSec for Kids? They should be. It would be awesome, wouldn't it? I think you and I have something right there we should take advantage of. Online CTFs, I already mentioned Neverland, but ctf.hackforkids.com. We typically have our CTF up and running at any time. We'll do certain events. NOLACon is next Saturday. So we're going to do something with the kids. You could participate, but you need to be present to win, which is kind of a way of filtering out the online people. But do it. It's fun, especially if you're when you think of a CTF, if your heart starts racing and you kind of want to do it, but you think you're not lead enough or it's just too complex or something. I used to be the same exact way about 6 years ago. And if it wasn't for Bsides, I never would have gotten into CTFs. I never would have, see if I can find it. I never would have then formed a team for that Tri-City Bsides Joint Task Force. And I never would have won this, which actually was awarded in Bsides Detroit, I think, which is the badge for my team winning that CTF. I take this with me everywhere as a reminder of how I overcame my fear, became a leader, and had success. So if you want to check it out, I'll keep it up here for a little bit. But it's absolutely cool. Give it a shot. Do it privately. Go online. And then whatever conference du jour. Like today, there's 2 CTFs. So you can't go wrong. We need to overcome the perceptions also that are out there. We need to continue to tell people, or especially the media, hackers are not cyber criminals. Cyber criminals are cyber criminals. You know, there's a lot of news going on right now too about WannaCry, and those are the bad guys. Those are the guys that we're trying to stop. And depending on from what perspective, they might be winning. But they win sometimes, but I think we win most of the time. And we need to keep doing it. There's a lot of geographical challenges and some funding challenges. So this morning, actually, wait, wrong slide. There we go. How did that get in there? This morning, that was when I did it at Wisconsin. So I did a map of Michigan, and I wanted to see kind of what maker spaces and activities are available for adults and kids. And so, GR makers, right? And then there's MySec. There's many places of MySec. If you're not going to a MySec meeting, you got to find a way to make that happen. Because I was at one on a panel just a few weeks ago, and I had a great time. I mean, you guys are, I think, maybe sometimes you're better than BurbSec, maybe sometimes you're not. I'm a part of BurbSec. It depends on the day of the week. But every Thursday, BurbSec's the best. So you guys, be a part of the community. It's not just going to help you meet like-minded people, but you're going to be able to maybe even get out of IT and move into InfoSec, or maybe get another job and move from a job that you're doing in InfoSec and then maybe become a pen tester or something else. I'm just using that as an example. But there's a bunch of maker spaces. I don't know if they're all active. I did a search. There's the link that I got for michiganmakers.weebly.com, local-makers, makerspaces.html. So there's like, what is that? 3i Detroit. There's one that I can't read. I can't read it. Something Makerspace that's in Detroit. Then there's MakerWorks in Ann Arbor and AHA in Ann Arbor. So there's stuff going on, but look at where it is in comparison to the rest of the state. So if you're up there in Traverse City or Port Huron, maybe you might want to start a makerspace in your area, or encourage other people to do it, because you're going to find people that want to do this. And then again, the funding's the hardest part. Don't say, we're going to make a makerspace and we're going to become a 501c3 and we're going to get space over here in some old garage and that's a real surefire way to fail from the beginning. Start slow, get people interested, get yourself registered, find out what funding. There is funding out there that you could use to pay for your makerspace. You just have to be creative when you reply to these solicitations and grants. Or maybe find a local company that will let you use their space on a Saturday when their office is closed. It could be a very nice symbiotic relationship. But do you guys think it's like a little bit too far, everything's too far east? There's like GR Makers in Grand Rapids, but don't you think there needs to, or is just all southern Michigan kind of like the hotbed for everything IT and InfoSec? A little bit? Not so much in the vacation spots? Okay. So it's probably then properly allocated across like southern Michigan. Okay. I always think of that as like a retirement kind of vacation place, if I'm wrong. Okay. Okay. So it does make sense that everything is around here because of the manufacturing and the consulting and everything else. Okay, perfect. But it's out there. Hopefully, if you didn't hear one of these organizations, you heard of them now, and you might want to attend a meeting. We talked about proximity a little bit and funding, but there's also, if you're way out there in a rural area, there's ruraltechfund.org. Go to ruraltechfund.org and get funds for just teaching kids to write code. And it's without the community, none of this stuff can happen. So if you think you got a good idea, but you don't know where to begin, somebody here can help you figure out where to begin. So I'm just going to wrap it up. This is very exciting and emerging stuff, right? Technology really has not been around for an incredible amount of time compared to things like the automobile or the pencil or the wheel. But when you look at like all the convergence between the technology and like vehicles and IoT and all this other stuff and automation, it's important that the current generation and even the kids leaving school and going into college have mentors like us to keep them on the straight path. I think the last kind of message there before I cut out is it's never going to end. Don't ever feel like this is done. It's never going to end. So if you feel like you're failing because you're not getting anywhere, Hack for Kids has been around for 4 years. It's a tremendous amount of like awareness that's out there. And I'm like amazed that there's so many people that are supporting us, people raising funds that we don't even go to them and do it. They just do it on their own and they want to help us because they have the same belief. Hopefully you'll have the same success. So think about what Benny could do and think about what your users could do a little differently. And just want to end it on a theme song that we created where drink all the Kool-Aid and hack all the things. Oh, it's coming up. And if you have any questions, I'll be in the hallway. I don't want to disrupt the next speaker. But thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, folks. You guys are awesome. Bsides, Detroit!